and thanks for joining us. I hope you have been enjoying the Community Day thus far. My name is Kirsten, and I'm a museum educator at the Newark Museum of Art, and I will be your co-host for the Animals segment. Today, we are joined by Nicole and John from Outragehisss Pets. They're a facility that has educational animals, and they have been in existence for 31 years. They have animals from all around the world, and they're going to be sharing some favorites with us today. And if you have questions about any of the animals you are seeing, please comment. If you are on Zoom, you can use the Q&A feature, and if you're on Facebook, comment on the video. We'll try to get to everyone. I will take about a couple questions after each individual animal. All right, and with that being said, take it away, Nicole and John.
All right, thank you. Hi, everybody out there. Hope everyone's doing well.
Hi.
We're happy to be a part of this and share our animals with everyone. We hope you enjoy it. My name's John, as you know, and Nicole, and we're going to show you some really neat creatures. And we're going to get started with one of our cutest little animals that we have here.
It's the tiniest type of fox in the world called the Fennec Fox. And this one, her name is Pixie. Let me grab her now.
So many of our animals, although not all of them, are animals that we've acquired from people. Perhaps they had them for pets, or they were facilities like our own where these animals are born, but they're not acquired from wild populations of animals. So people often ask us, where do you get all these crazy animals for? But they're all captive born here in the U.S. And this little girl, Pixie, you see Pixie there, she's got these amazing little ears. She's absolutely adorable. This is the smallest species of fox in the world, the Fennec Fox. And they come from the Sahara Desert, and they're perfectly adapted for their desert environments. First of all, their size is super small, so they don't need a lot of food or water to survive. And they hunt by using these really big ears. So those ears can pick up the smallest noises coming from under the sand. Insects scratching around, scorpions, even venomous snakes. These little guys can tackle it. So even though she's super tough, she's super cute rather, she's super tough. So our little Fennec Fox here uses her ears not only for hearing, but because they're so large, it helps her get heat off of her body without panting like a dog would, so she doesn't lose any moisture. And in the desert, that's the most precious thing to acquire. So conserving the water in your body, and they even get it from the things that they eat. These little guys are tough as nails. Even her feet have furry little pads on the bottom, so that when she walks on the hot sand, it doesn't burn her feet. Nicole will show you
little foot.
Furry little pad right there.
No skin pads like on a dog's paw.
And their bushy tails wrap around them, so it's almost like a scarf. It will protect them at cold nights and when there's a sandstorm or something like that. And these little guys are adorable. Now, people ask me this all the time. They're like, "Oh, I want one for a pet. Would it make a great pet?" Even though these animals are exotic animals and they're tame, captive animals, we use them for programs. If we didn't do this, we wouldn't have these animals for pets in our homes, because a lot of times when people have these guys, they think they're going to have it, it's going to be like a dog, but it's not. And unfortunately, I think people don't educate themselves enough when they get animals like this for pets. So we try to educate people. They can have experience and see these animals and learn about them, but they're not going to try to keep them for a pet. So if we have any questions too on Pixie or Fennec Foxes in general, I don't know if we have any.
Not questions so far, just everyone commenting on how adorable.
Oh, yeah.
I have a question though. How big will Pixie get? Is this her full adult size?
Full grown, and these foxes are usually between like 2.5, 3, maybe 4 pounds for a little fat one, but they're lean, small animals. They can go a long time without drinking water, and like I said, get all the water they need from insects and rodents and things that they hunt on. And they're even immune to many of the venoms from some of these creatures that they hunt for, so they can handle a scorpion sting or whatever, and they're very tough little hunters.
And her small size is very helpful in the desert, because in an ecosystem where there's limited food and water, well, if you're a big-sized animal, you're going to need more food and water than a small-sized animal. So this small animal, not requiring a lot of food and water, can do much better surviving in a place like the desert.
Speaking of food, we have a question. What do they eat?
That's a great question. We try to give them as varied of a diet as we can. Sometimes if people have them and they try to keep them for pets, they just give them cat food and things like that. We raise a lot of insects to feed many of our other creatures, so we try to give them a good balanced diet. We give them insects, and believe it or not, they actually eat a lot of plants. So we give them like a salad mixed with, you know, some dry kibble, with their insects, with different meats and things like that. So we give them a varied diet. And like I said, including as many insects as we can in that diet. So Nicole will show you what she loves to do.
Oh, we'll see if she'll do it right now. 9 out of 10 times she'll do it. If I lift the corner of my shirt, she goes right in.
That's her favorite place to stay.
She's very snuggly. One of the reasons why she's my favorite.
We have a question. Do you know how fast they can run?
Oh, they're super fast, super athletic, very agile. They can jump really far. They're probably, I would say, they could run maybe 20 miles an hour, which is fast for a little animal. And they're very, like, maneuverable, so they can zigzag back and forth, and that big bushy tail helps them counterbalance their maneuvers as they dart across the sand.
Interestingly, a lot of foxes like to live alone, but the Fennec Fox is a social animal. And so they like to live with sometimes up to 10 other foxes in the den, which is a system of tunnels that they dig underground in the sand. So
the previous generation will help raise the generation that's growing up at the time, so that's a cooperative effort. And this is another thing that gives them an edge in the desert for survival.
Great. We have another inquiry. Are
Sure.
Fennec Foxes nocturnal?
Absolutely. And in the desert, most animals are nocturnal because it's just too hot during the day. So when deserts really come alive, it's usually at nighttime. And these little Fennec Foxes have those big ears, which gives them a huge advantage. They also have a vertical pupil, which opens up much wider than a circular pupil. And it helps them see better at nighttime because it lets more light in their irises. So they can really, see pretty well in the dark.
Fantastic. So we have a couple of more questions which were already answered previously. So if you asked a question, I will be commenting in the chat with you. And I think we should move on to our next animal. What is next?
sounds great. Not only does Pixie love to eat things like bugs, our next animal has a super long sticky tongue for catching bugs. Can you guess what it's going to be?
Now, sometimes we acquire animals. As I said, you people have them for pets, and this is one of our newer animals, and her name is Camilla. She's a chameleon, a veiled chameleon. And her owners couldn't keep her anymore, so we adopted her, and we're happy to have her here as part of our animal family. And this little chameleon is so cool. I love her.
There she is.
Now, chameleons, there's a lot of different species of chameleons, and this one comes from Yemen in the Middle East. It's in Saudi Arabia also. It's called a veiled chameleon. And this little point on her head is called a casque. A lot of chameleons have different ornamentation on them. So like the famous Jackson's chameleons with the 3 horns, they look a little bit like a triceratops. It's really cool because these guys almost look like relics of little dinosaurs. So chameleons are unique because they have this amazing tongue. Even the way their hands work, if you can see her little hands, the fingers are fused together, which makes a little clamp for her to hold on to her branch. The tail's all curled up right now, if you look at her tail right there, but she'll wrap that right around the branch, and it's completely prehensile. So because these guys are real good hunters and using their tongue, most lizards can smell with their tongue. Their tongue is really functions as a tool to catch their prey. So they're great at camouflage. They blend in super well with the foliage and everything. And a lot of people think that they're changing their colors as for camouflage. But the truth is chameleons use color for communication. And most of the time when they're changing their colors, it will tell another chameleon what their mood is, even when they're ready to breed, when they're receptive. So when they're angry, their colors can become very brilliant. And when they're sleeping at night, their colors become, they're at their most brilliant. So this is her normal happy color. And we're gonna see if we can get her to eat a bug. So we have a nice juicy cockroach, and I'm sure she's hungry, so we're gonna see her eat it. You guys are ready?
And while John's grabbing her meal, can you see this eye? Well, this eye can look ahead while her other eye looks behind her at the same time. She can have one eye looking to the right while another looks to the left. They work independently of one another, which is just so cool.
All right, now we have a nice juicy cockroach here. I'm gonna go first. And once she sees this moving, you'll see that little tongue go. Come on, girl. And it's amazing. This tongue is as long as her whole body. She's thinking about it here. She wants to do it. And you watch her eyes focusing in and aiming on the prey. So they can use the eyes independently and then switch them to binocular vision. And this way she can aim and judge the distance of her prey better and operate that tongue to perfect accuracy. And they're amazing insect hunters. And you can see this whole little, like, you can see the kind of like the tongue and the muscles right here in her throat too. She is so cool.
Great. So what colors do they change into? You mentioned they get vibrantly green. Are there a range of colors?
It's pretty amazing. They can't make themselves just any color. So like if she was up against like a blue background, purple background, she's not going to change colors like that. So they'll go from like a brilliant green to a muted green to perhaps like brown. The females can also get blue little dots in amongst their coloring. The males are very brilliant. They have like yellows and turquoise, and you know, it's amazing, and they're beautiful creatures. There's a lot of chameleons, most of which come from Madagascar. This one comes from the Middle East. They come from Africa, but they're not found in the New World. They're basically what people call old world chameleons, and some people call other lizards chameleons, like the little ones in Florida, but those are slightly different. They look similar, but they're not actually related. They're superficially very similar. So our little, we might get her to eat another bug. I'm gonna try it again.
Yeah, she looked pretty ready to go. You want another bug, Camilla?
Does Camilla shed her skin at all?
She does. In fact, she just did it not long ago. Oh, she's ready to go again here.
All reptiles will shed their skin. So snakes, lizards, turtles and tortoises, crocodilians too. They all shed their skin. It's a process during while they grow, and also they can also heal their body during this process too.
So also a lot of people, because we get this question a lot, people ask about animals as pets. You know, chameleons they're really neat animals. I like veiled chameleons because they're all born in captivity, but the problem is they're not the simplest pets. They require a lot of attention, special enclosures. So if you're thinking about getting one for a pet, it's a neat animal, but it's not for everyone. And I find that, like I said, sometimes people buy animals, they don't have quite all the facts and end up with creatures that, you know, they can't handle, or, you know, they don't understand their full proper care. If you do get any animal for a pet, do your research first. There's no such thing as an easy pet. We always tell that to everybody. But neat little animal, very cool. We love her. She's one of our favorite chameleons here.
We're going to take one more question. This question's from Helen. She's asking, why do chameleons get brighter when they sleep? Wouldn't that just endanger them?
You know what? It is. Now, I'm not absolutely sure on that, but I will tell you, like if you see them at night, you spotlight them or whatever with a flashlight, they'll stand out like a sore thumb. But their predators don't have a bright light like that. So they do survive. They'll usually find a safe place to perch, and they'll just sit completely motionless and go into like a real, like almost like a torpor kind of state. And they'll just sit there. And even though they're brightly colored and you would think that would make them vulnerable, as soon as daylight returns, then they go back to their more muted colors. But it's kind of strange, you know, it could have to do with their blood circulation or something like that, that creates those lighter colors. So when they're sleeping, you know, they're at their brightest color.
Fantastic. Thank you. And once again, as you guys are answering questions, we're going to try to take as many as we can, and hopefully there's time at the end if we didn't get to you.
Absolutely.
Sounds great.
Everyone say goodbye to Camilla. We're going to see another reptilian friend, but one that doesn't have legs or a tail like Camilla. This one has a different kind of tail.
All right, now You can see that little guy right there. This is a green tree python, and they come from Australia and Papua New Guinea. And these snakes are one of the most beautiful snakes. I know some people don't like snakes, but even if you don't like snakes, you have to appreciate how beautiful this snake is. What a gorgeous, gorgeous animal. The camouflage on these snakes is absolutely amazing. Not only do they have, of course, the green color to look like the foliage, but if you look closer, you can even see, he's got little droplets of water on him, but if you look at these little white spots, it even mimics the dappling sunlight on the foliage in the rainforest. So they'll completely camouflage. They can be right in front of you. You wouldn't even see them. So they're camouflaging so that they can blend in and, of course, avoid predators, but they also camouflage from their prey. So in their normal resting position, this guy's not quite in it, but they look like a U, a series of U-shaped folds on top of each other. And they'll sit in this little position, and he's got this really neat little tail. If I show it to you, slightly different coloring on there. I don't know if you can see, it's got some flecking on it. What the snake will do is it will sit and have the head right in the center. The tail will jiggle around, and they actually use it as a lure, and it's called a caudal lure, so like a tail lure. So they wiggle it around, and a bird or a lizard will see this, and then bam, they'll grab it really fast, and they'll wrap it up and squeeze it. Now it's a python, and they don't get huge like some other species like Burmese pythons or olive pythons in Australia. These guys are on the smaller side. So they're up in the trees. They got these real nimble bodies, soft scales, great at climbing. And they've even got, if we show you his little face, this guy's a very tame green tree python. I wouldn't be putting my face near most of them, but this guy's always been really neat. He was someone's pet too. We adopted him. But if you look at his little face, I'm just going to hold it right up there for a second. Look at it. I'm not hurting him. I'm just kind of holding his face there. There's these little slots in his lips. And what he does is he can actually feel the heat. You can even see him on the side there. Nicole's pointing to him. So those are like their labial pits. They're heat sensors. They're similar to like a pit viper's. And what he's getting is the heat imprint of his prey. So even in complete darkness, even if his eyes can't see or his tongue can't, if he can't smell it, he can actually zero in on the heat of his prey and grab it and be very accurate about it. They've got big teeth for little snakes so they can hold on to their prey. Sometimes when you're in the canopy in the rainforest, the prey doesn't come around all that often. So if you do get something, you want to make sure that you hold on to it. So he's got these big teeth, and they'll just wrap it up, constrict it. It shuts down the blood circulation and some of that respiration, and then the animal's eaten whole. If you'd like, we're going to feed him a live rat if you guys want to see. I'm just kidding. No. So we feed him pre-killed prey, eats mice and small rats. And even though it's not alive, he still grabs it and tries to constrict it. You can see his little tongue sticking out there, helping him pick up smells. Snakes have always been my favorite animal. I've had snakes since I was 5 years old. I think they're amazing creatures. They're really cute. They're really cool. They're beautiful animals. But sadly, snake populations are decreasing all around the world, as with other animals. And they play an important role. They eat a lot of rats, and they control rodent populations. And they also protect us from the diseases that rodents carry. So snakes are very beneficial animals, very important in any ecosystem. And we even benefit from them as well. But absolutely one of my favorite animals, snakes. I love them. And this guy's beautiful. Really cool note here. You can see on the side of him, he's got a little blue and a little bit yellow. But when these guys are born, they undergo a change. They're actually born either yellow or red and like a brick color. And as they get older, they change to this green color, which they are as an adult. So when they're little, you know, they might have different color patterns, and this way they can blend in with different things, and they could sit on a yellow flower and catch prey like small hummingbirds and things like that. And as they get bigger, their lifestyle may change, and so does their color. But this is a very like slow change that happens, and gradually the snake shifts over to the beautiful green color that it is as an adult. But every once in a while you see some that are yellow as adults and things like that. But typically in the wild, most populations have a lot of green on them. Very cool snake. This guy will get a little bigger. He's a male. Females on pythons get bigger than that, but they're not huge pythons. They'll never get really big. and they'll stay all wrapped up a lot. So it's deceiving how much snake there is when he's all stretched out. He's a little bit longer than you think. He's actually grown quite a bit since we've had him. Very pretty snake though, isn't he?
He's gorgeous.
Oh yeah.
People are
He'll
interested.
stretch that neck out, reach right up to the next branch. He can actually keep his whole neck stiff and reach over like 2-3 feet to the next branch.
Wow. So we have a couple interest in his skin and his scales. What does it look like, and how often does he shed his skin?
He actually just shed his skin. So when they're growing and they're warm, if they've got a lot of food, in captivity, for instance, they're going to shed more often. So he might shed every 2 to 3 months. When they're younger, they shed more. And if they're healing, they'll shed more too. So that shedding process, the old layer of skin is dying. It separates from the new skin underneath. They peel it off, and then there's a brand new layer underneath. So this will also help him refreshen his skin and even get rid of parasites that are on the outside of them when they live in the wild. His skin is not slimy. Snakes are never slimy. Some of them have rougher scales. These guys, and a lot of tree snakes, have very soft, like supple skin. And for a snake, this guy is really, really soft, but not slimy at all. It feels very, I want to say like, almost like plastic a little bit, I
Reminds
guess.
me of a garden hose a little bit,
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah, but not slimy. It's a
Nope.
myth that snakes are slimy. They're never slimy.
They're just shiny, never slimy. That's what I say.
That's right. It's a cool little guy though.
So he's bright green, and I think a lot of us associate vivid green with poisonous. Is he poisonous?
He's not venomous. Pythons are not venomous. They're constrictors. So he's completely harmless. He does not have fangs or venom. Although sometimes snakes that are venomous are associated with, that have bright colors are associated with venomous snakes. And there are some like coral snakes and other types of species. There are some snakes that also mimic those bright colors to fool their predators. So green usually is a camouflage color, not what they call a warning color. So blacks and reds and yellows and black and white sometimes, those can be more warning colors than camouflage colors. But this guy is really relying on camouflage. And even though he himself is a predator, he does have to look out for, in the wild, sometimes snakes are cannibalistic. They might get eaten by other snakes or birds of prey or large lizards, monitor lizards, things like that. So, the food chain keeps going up, even though this guy is, a predator. He's probably not at the top, or not near it.
I'm glad that you mentioned that his camouflage is hiding him from the animals that want to eat him, but also from his prey, the animals that he wants to eat.
That's right.
What does he want to eat?
He eats mice, small rats. That's what we feed him. In the wild, they might eat more birds and occasionally lizards and maybe even frogs when they're little. But, in captivity, most of these animals eat a diet of rats, captive-born rats and mice being more readily available than frogs and lizards and other things that might carry parasites and things that we wouldn't feed our snakes in captivity. And this guy's a captive-born snake, not from the wild.
All of our animals are captive born and raised.
That's right.
And lastly, how old is our friend, and how long do they live? What is their lifespan?
This guy is about 4.5 years old, and we've had some of our pythons live over 25 years. So I think the record for, a boa might be over 30 or something like that. But I think it's possible for many pythons to live about 20 plus years. Some smaller snakes, 15 up to 20. So this guy's got a long life ahead of him. He'll be with us for a long time. We have a boa that's probably like 28 years old.
I'm getting up there.
Yeah.
All right, our next animal is going to be an animal that would normally live in a place called Australia. So I'm gonna put Con down, and we're gonna bring in a wallaby. It's the shorter cousin of a kangaroo. So it's gonna look a lot like a kangaroo, but don't forget it's a wallaby. As John brings in the wallaby, I'm going to grab this, which is a little homemade pouch. My mom actually made it. Thanks, Mom. And Penny's going to be going into this pouch. The wallaby is named Penny. And at this stage, she's an adult, so she wouldn't normally be hiding in her mom's pouch as an adult. but we have this larger pouch that we can kind of pretend she's still like a baby in the pouch with. And here is Penny. I'm just going to lower this a little bit so we can see her down here. There she is. Now, a wallaby, we said, looks a lot like a kangaroo with the shorter feet in front and the bigger feet in back. Let's see if I can hold her up here and show you her big back feet. Ready? Whoopee, big back feet. We're also going to give her a little snack of wallaby food. We knew there was a market for that, right? And she's loving that. But she is a plant eater, just like a kangaroo is. And those back feet that I showed you, those are going to be for not only hopping, but for kickboxing. So just like a kangaroo would stand on their tail and use both back feet to punch forward, wallabies like Penny do this too. This tail is super strong, super muscular, and while I'm holding it, pretty heavy actually. So it's a great appendage for her to use to support that whole body weight. And for a male Bennett's wallaby, that's the species that she is, a Bennett's wallaby, that could be around 40 pounds of weight supported by that tail. So pretty impressive. Now her brown color is the typical color of a wild Bennett's wallaby that you would find in Australia. Great for camouflage and hiding from those dingoes, those wild dogs that hunt wallabies in Australia. So if Penny sees a dingo, remember she can hop away very quickly with those back feet or kickbox them like we were just discussing. She does have these pretty long claws on her front feet, which a lot of times I get asked, does she use those to like scratch? Mostly those long claws are going to help her grab leaves and grass that she's eating when she's hanging out. And because she's a female and part of the marsupial family, don't forget marsupials are animals that have pouches for their babies, like opossums and kangaroos and wallabies. So she does have the pouch because she's a female. The boys, the males, they do not have pouches. And her Joey, that's what we call the baby who grows up in mom's pouch, he spends a few weeks inside her body growing at the beginning, but then finishes his growth and development in that pouch where he could stay for up to 9 months. Starting from the size of maybe one of these pieces of food here I could show you, from the size of one green pea about they start. They grow to be, like we said, if they're a male, maybe 40 pounds or so. And here's Penny, fully grown. Let's see if I can get her to stand up a little bigger here. Here, Penny, look over here. Fail, she's smelling the ground instead of looking up. All right, well, I wanted to see if we could get her to stand up a little taller there. There she is. Now, would you mind passing me her pouch? I'm gonna see if we can quickly kidnap her in here. And when I do so, I'm gonna give her a little twist, whoopee, because when she normally jumps in her mom's pouch, she would be diving in head first and doing a little somersault while she's in the pouch to get herself righted. So you can see her kind of squiggling around in the pouch there. And then as soon as I go like this, now her head is at the top. So there she is, looking as cute as can be in this pouch. Oh, look this way. Look at all our friends. Say hi. Here.
Nicole, at what age does Penny stop liking the pouch? Do they grow out of climbing into their mother's pouches?
Well, we've had other wallabies in the past that would always hop into these homemade pouches that we have. So I guess they do find it pretty comfortable. But in the wild, that mother wallaby is going to be having a new Joey shortly after her first Joey, shall we say. So she's not really going to have much room in the pouch to allow the bigger Joey to hop back in, because then the little Joey gets squished. And normally they have one, maybe two babies at a time, but as you can imagine, 2 babies in the pouch, it's also kind of squished in there and harder for mom to keep them healthy.
So, but they would be in there for, after 6 months, she's not going to let the older Joey in there anymore. But the interesting thing is, she's going to have a new Joey in the pouch that's very tiny, hairless, really small, and she's nursing that little Joey inside the pouch, where the older Joey outside the pouch still might need some milk. So she can actually nurse and give the little baby inside the pouch one type of milk and then another for the older Joey, 2 different types, possibly more fat-rich for the little baby growing wallaby Joey, and the older one not as much, maybe just more for hydration. So it's incredible how these animals can have that adaptation to make 2 different formulas of milk, one for the tiny little growing Joey and for the other one that's weaning off and already outside the pouch, just sticking his head in to nurse.
Let's go ahead and let her out of this pouch again. And as I do so, whoopee, There she goes.
So larger marsupials like kangaroos, they might take up to 9 or so months to develop. And other smaller marsupials like sugar gliders and things are going to have a much shorter life in the pouch, growth in the pouch, maybe more like 3 months. So depending on the size, usually that depends on how long they're going to stay in that pouch and grow and develop. But there's no other animals like this anywhere on Earth. Australia definitely has the most unique wildlife. And sadly, these guys were introduced to New Zealand. They don't belong there, but they've had a very bad impact on the ecology there because they're non-native species. So as cute as they are in New Zealand, they're considered actually a pest or an invasive species because they're not native to that. But Australia is their native home. There is a population in Tasmania as well, and it's colder there, so they have a thicker, darker coat. But these are the guys that, this is your typical Bennett's wallaby, or they call them redneck wallabies because the males get a little bit of a reddish on their neck too. She's got her pouch right on her tummy right here, so I can't really show you, but I can feel it. And that'll stretch and accommodate that baby, and she can hop with that baby in the pouch.
Here she goes trying to hop.
The mother will even call the baby to the pouch going, and then they'll dive in there head first, do a little flip in there.
Speaking of hopping, there's a lot of interest in Penny's athleticism. Does she hop a lot? How far can she jump? Any kickboxing like her kangaroo family member?
Well, the kicking and the kickboxing is usually reserved for the males. That's a territorial fight. If they're fighting for females, the dominance thing. So our female wallabies are usually not as kicky as our boy wallabies, but basically the way they move, they have these really amazing tendons in their legs that are stretchy like a rubber band. They store energy, so when they're hopping, the animal's bouncing and then counterbalancing with the tail. So everything kind of gains momentum as it goes, and it's a very efficient way to get around, and they use very little energy. So they're in a place where they've got to travel really far to get water, to go to food, and back and forth. And by using as little energy as possible, hopping is much more efficient than running on 4 legs. And they will, although I've never really seen too many in captivity do it, they probably could clear a 4, possibly 5-foot fence if they're motivated, but they can jump pretty high, and they can go pretty fast too, maybe 30 miles an hour. I'm not sure exactly how fast, but you know, if they're in a full bolt trying to get away from a predator, they're definitely going to move quick, and those legs, as I said, can be very efficient. They have enormous hip bones here connected to all this. You can see the weight is right in the middle of the animal. So she's built like a little T-Rex. She got the little tiny arms. She's got the weight right in the back, and like we said, the counterbalance of the tail. So this tail's loaded with muscles and big vertebrae. So it makes her very tough. And even though I'm holding her by her tail, this is not hurting her. In fact, it's the way you hold them, because if you were to drop them, not hold them right, you can't really hold them any other way except by their tail. So that's the proper way to hold them. You know, some people see us holding them by their tails when we're handling them, but it doesn't hurt them at all. She's very alert. You can see her little ears moving around, even going in different directions. So in the wild, I actually went to Australia many years ago. When you just tried to get up to them, get a little photograph of them or something, you know, they were so alert. They'd be gone, just crashing through the bushes, and that's it. So, you know, in the wild, they're constantly looking out for eagles, dingoes, and other things. But their populations have, like locally deer in the United States, their populations have risen. They're benefiting from people's lawns and yards where they can graze and get free food. So they're no danger of becoming extinct.
All right.
Super soft. Super soft.
Bye, Penny. She says, bye, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
We also have an albino one too. We have a white wallaby as well, which would be a little rare in the wild, but that's obviously their natural color.
All right, and I believe we have just about time for one more animal.
Okay. All right. Now we have gonna bring you guys over to our sloth. So Nicole You can hold that.
Sure, let me switch the camera around.
We're going to bring you to him. So we have a sloth here. His name is Oliver, and these are his roommates. These are Bolivian jays. They're very protective of him. They're like his buddies. So our sloth Oliver he's about 3 years old, and he's a little baby. We've had sloths in the past that we've had for over 20 years. We had one born here in our facility. Sloths are amazing animals. Take a look at his little face. His eyesight's terrible. But look at his fur. It feels like a wig. And he'll sit around for hours a day and blend in and not go anywhere. He's got hook-like feet that help him grab onto the branches. Although he doesn't look like it, he's actually related to armadillos and anteaters. Those are his two closest relatives. I can get him to turn this way.
Maybe if I
see your face here.
I'm going to
there
switch
he
over.
is, there he is.
Oh, this way? Sorry.
There he is. Sorry, he's got a little food stuck to his face from a messy meal that he had. He got some bananas stuck to his face. But he's got this incredible fur. This is his camouflage, and it also keeps him warm and helps him shed rain when he's in a storm. And they'll just hook themselves right on a branch and just sit right in the middle of the storm, brave the storm, just hanging out in the pure in the rain. We've actually seen them in the wild. We went to Costa Rica and Belize and see them out in the middle of a storm, and they didn't even seem to mind it. And they grow a lot of algae when it's really rainy in the rainy season, which helps their camouflage and even disguise their odor. So as long as they eat a lot of plants, they're very slow moving, and because their digestion is so slow, some of the even poisonous leaves that they eat, they can counteract the toxins, and it doesn't bother their body at all. He's being a little shy right now. Of course, he lives upside down, so everything's orientated upside down here. He's got these adorable little ears. He's got big teeth. You can see those big teeth. And they help protect himself. His claws aren't what we worry about. His teeth are what you gotta watch out for. So to make up for his poor eyesight, he's got a very sensitive nose. And Oliver will even actually feel things with his nose. It's very sensitive. So it's very important to him, that nose. He'll check his food out. We give him a lot of different greens, some fruits and vegetables, special diets that are, for leaf-eating monkeys and stuff, like little biscuits that he likes to eat. His last one, he made a mess of himself, spread it all over himself. Very cool animal.
Is it possible a close-up on his claws?
His claws. Okay, let's see if we can do that for you.
I want to see your little arm here, buddy. Come on, buddy. Come on.
He's like, I'm using them right now. Let's see. If I go right here, can you see there's those 3 claws right there?
So this is actually a 2-toed sloth. On the back, he has three toes.
Oh, here's his.
But on the front, he's got 2. So these claws, they're just hooked to hold on. He's got a very elongated palm, so everything just holds right onto the branch. They have a lot of strength pulling themselves up. They have literally no strength to push themselves up. So when they're on the ground, it's kind of sad to see them squirming along, dragging themselves on the ground. In the wild, sloths, because a lot of their habitat has been fragmented or broken up, they can't cross roads and other things without being hit by a car. So in the wild, they have to have unbroken habitat where they can move from one forest area to another without being in danger of human hazards. So to preserve their natural environment, they need vast areas of virgin forest that are not logged or destroyed or even, like I said, broken up in any way. So there's 3-toed sloths. Those are slower. 2-toed sloth is a little faster than most people might think, although he's pretty sleepy right now. At nighttime, he does a lot of crawling around, and he's a very active animal, actually. Birds are pecking at my head. They're protecting me.
And what does Oliver eat?
We give him a lot of different greens. He eats a lot of vegetables. He'll eat some fruit. He'll eat a leaf eater monkey biscuit. That's designed for primates, but it works well for him too. But he eats a lot of greens. That's a big part of his diet. And he likes a little sweet potato and carrots. And we give him a lot of other things, some bananas for treats and things like that. But he's completely vegetarian, a complete herbivore. Does not eat any meat at all.
How big do the sloths get? Is there a difference in the sizing between the two-toed and the three-toed sloth?
Yes, the two-toed sloths are the bigger species, although there's different species, subspecies of two-toed sloths and three-toed sloths. The two-toed sloths are generally bigger, and the three-toed sloths are smaller. And they even, the three-toed sloths even have a small, almost stubby-like tail appendage, where doesn't exist on the two-toed sloth. And this one doesn't have the mask on its face like the three-toed sloths do. And the three-toed sloths are so slow that they're typically the ones that really grow a lot of algae or green hue to their fur in the rainy season. And even when they go to the bathroom, they come down about once every 5 days or so, defecate on the ground, and then crawl back up the trunk of the tree. And although this sounds risky, these little spots where they defecate are little calling cards for other sloths, and they can gain a lot of information about other neighboring sloths. And that's why they usually do it.
Are they isolated animals, or do they like to kind of live nearby other sloths?
Usually what will happen is one male will live in a territory that has other females overlapping. So he'll tolerate the females living in his territory, but probably not another male, and would probably fight or try to dominate that other male to get him out of his territory. And also by dispersing themselves across the jungle in little territories, they can use their resources evenly and not eat all the leaves in one tree or whatever. So from time to time, forest will flood, and these guys will even swim. They're really good swimmers. They can doggy paddle in the water, and they can get from one area to another even when the forest is flooded.
Do sloths have any predators?
They do have predators. They have to watch out for eagles and jaguars, other species of cats too, maybe an ocelot or something like that. They're vulnerable to any habitat change or anything like that. But for the most part, I would say probably jaguars, eagles, that would be their top predators. Maybe a really large boa or anaconda. Anaconda would definitely be. If they're paddling in the water, they might come across one of those. So, pretty much that's the bulk of their main predators, I would think.
Great. Thank you. Well, we hope
harpy eagle. Yeah.
And an eagle. Thank you so much, John and Nicole. That was amazing. If you enjoyed this, please check out their website and their Facebook. It's Outragehisss Pets. Outragehisss with 3 S's, Pets.
That's
I'm
right.
sure there's more information. You can go down an awesome rabbit hole looking up more about these pets. And thank you so much for tuning in for our Digital Earth Day. We hope to see you guys again. At 2 p.m. there will be a session with Bash the Trash. They make instruments from recycled materials, and there'll be a really great concert. And at 3 p.m. we're going to have a tour on our collection around pieces that are made with earth. So thank you so much for joining. We hope to see you guys again when the museum is open, and in the meantime, be safe and healthy. Thank you, everyone. And thanks, John and Nicole.
Thank you, everybody. Stay healthy. Hoping everybody to the best and be safe. And hope to see you guys again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.